story. The food looks so good that I've decided to tell the story.
John, the tape's almost ended.
Oh, sorry, really? How long? How much time do you have? You know what the French Foreign Legion is, right? You do or don't? You have any idea? French, foreign. Now, would it be foreign if they were all Frenchmen? No. So the French Foreign Legion is made up of, in the past it was made up of men, many of them unlucky in love. They might have been jilted. They said goodbye, sayonara. So they go off, instead of goodbye cruel world, I'm off to join the circus, it's goodbye cruel world, I'm going to join the Foreign Legion and focus my anger and pain and hurt to killing for the French Foreign Legion. So anyway, this English officer, qualified to fight, decided to join the Foreign Legion. His wife, while he was out with British troops, ran away with a young man from London. He came back, he was crushed, so he went off to the French Foreign Legion and took to one of the desert outposts. He joined, and because the Foreign Legion recognized his superior ability as an officer, they put him right in there at the top, in command of this barracks in this faraway outpost in the desert. He went out there and took command and everything was fine. But after about 8 weeks, he began to. So after 8 weeks, he was beginning to wonder how he could relieve himself of the sexual tension that was building up inside his body. He needed a woman. You know, it's bad enough to have your woman say adios. It's worse not to have any woman at all. So here he is, 8 weeks, and he's just about beside himself. And he says to Sergeant Riley, who was the head of the enlisted men, he says, Sergeant Riley, what do the enlisted men do for sex? I'm just about up to here with I need to have something. And Sergeant Riley says, well, sir, the men use the camel. The camel. Well, how does one get up on the camel? Well, sir, you just simply get up on the side of the corral and mount the camel. He said, well, can you arrange for me to use the camel? Well, this weekend happens to be free. The men aren't going to be using the camel this weekend. So on Friday night, the camel's yours. And he says, well, Sergeant Riley, would you please come down to the corral about 8 o'clock? That's when I plan to mount the camel. And tell me if I'm doing it right. I need some pointers, maybe. So you could just sort of help me out. So the colonel goes down to the corral at the appointed time, 8 o'clock Friday evening, proceeds to back the camel into the corner, gets up on the fence, and proceeds to have sex with his camel, mounts the camel, and he's going and going and going. And by Joe, if he doesn't release that tension that he had been complaining about, he has climaxed, he's through. And as he's kind of wiping off the sweat off his brow, as he's putting his clothes back on, he walks out, his shirt open, just totally exhausted and spent. And he says to Sergeant Riley, well, Sergeant Riley, did I do it like the enlisted men do? Sergeant Riley said, well, sir, the enlisted men usually get up on the camel and ride into town.
Yeah, classic.